increased associated gas production from the offshore oil fields in the South China Sea demanded an expansion of the existing gas processing plant with 2 additional units. The contract to build this new gas processing plant expansion GPP 2 and 3 was won by the Korean contractor Hyundai. In September, the project went out for bids for ocean carriage, inland haulage and erection of all major heavy lifts. Jumbo, in cooperation with its Malaysian partner Container National and its Peninsular Malaysian agent Transfleet, made a feasibility study and presented the bid early October 1990. A major problem was the inland haulage from nearest seaport Kemaman supply base until the job site approximately 27 miles north along the coast. Along the coastal route were 4 bridges with weight restrictions of only 69 metric tons, which proved insufficient for the heaviest columns of 350 tons. Reinforcing the bridges would be too costly and would not be ready in time anyway. Detailed feasibility studies and road as well as river surveys were made, as a result of which Jumbo suggested to use the Pakar River approximately 5 miles north of the Kerteh job site. Entering this river with a heavy lift barge could be done provided certain conditions were met. With a water depth at low water of only 4 feet, the Pakar River was only navigable at high water. The river was full of sandbanks without proper channel markings. The monsoon period, which ends around March, could affect the barging. A road jetty had to be constructed at the South River bank, and finally, as no suitable barges were available in Malaysia, one would have to be mobilized from Singapore. Jumbo proposed a barge solution, with the restriction that the maximum weight per barge trip would not exceed 600 metric tons, resulting in a maximum draft of the barge of only 5.5 feet. In December 1990, Hyundai made up its mind and decided in favor of the combination Container National Jumbo Shipping. As the award had come in rather late, the initial preparatory work had to be done quickly, such as making detailed stowage plans for the first heavy lift ship as well as for the barge. Preparations to provide a suitable barge and shallow draft tug from Singapore were made early January 1991. Steel support beams, ro-ro rams and deck supports were designed and fabricated in Singapore and placed on board of the barge and mobilized to the Pakar River. Jumbo directed its heavy lift fairmast to Ulsan, Korea for loading the first series of 5 towers in January. At Jumbo's technical office in Rotterdam, final details were prepared. And mid-February, after loading the first 5 towers in Ulsan, the fairmast was on its way to Kemaman supply base. In Kuala Lumpur, Jumbo's Special Transport Division staff instructed Malaysian transport contractor Shapadu on how the inland haulage should be carried out. This award included ocean carriage from Ulsan in Japan to Malaysia, transfer of heavy lifts onto flat dock barge in Kemaman, barging along the East Malaysian coast until Pakar River, and finally the roll-off from barge and inland haulage to site over another 5 miles. For the hydraulic platform trailers, low loaders, heavy lift barge, tugs and other equipment, Container National and Jumbo opted for local subcontractors. In order to create maximum flexibility and efficiency, Jumbo proposed to use 4 sets of 5 Exoline Cometo platform trailers with turntables. Early March 1991, the prepared barge was towed out of the Pakar River mouth to Kemaman supply base. Strong monsoon winds created quite a swell near the Paca River entrance, but the 500 horsepower tug pulled the barge through, and after a while the tow was on course to Gumama's supply base. On the 24th of February, Jumbo's heavy lift vessel Fairmast arrived in Kemaman, and no time was lost in readying the ship to let her discharge 3 large columns onto the barge. 2 heavy columns of 220 tons each and one of 100 tons were loaded on deck supports on the barge and lashed and secured for towage along the coast to Paca. The heel of the vessel is compensated by ballasting the opposite wing tanks of the vessel. Gradually, the 220 tons load is maneuvered above the deck supports on the barge. Chain blocks are used to hold the column in correct position while the lifting tackle is being released. 2 remaining lighter columns of 38 tons and 74 tons respectively were placed on supports on the quayside for direct road transport to the job site. To meet the right high water level on entering the Paca River, the barge left Kemaman's supply base around 2 o'clock that same night. It was quite an experience to see the sunrise over the South China Sea from a flat-top barge somewhere along the coast of East Malaysia. Entering the Paca River mouth and maneuvering the barge along the many sandbanks to the Ro-Ro jetty near the bridge was the most difficult part of the entire operation. Local fishing boats assisted in the approach of the river and helped to maneuver along the many sandbanks. By midnight, the barge was safely maneuvered in front of the Ro-Ro jetty and pumped aground there. The next morning, preparations were made to roll off the center column over 200 feet long and 220 tons heavy. Positioned on 2 5-axle-line Cometto platform trailers with turntables, and pulled by 2 Scania heavy-duty tractors, this long load gradually climbed the 5% access road and reached the main road a few minutes later. The local electricity board had a crew on standby to raise the many overhead wires across the road. Each man had a specific task. Only 6 miles separated the column from its final destination. Gradually, the stainless steel giant moved along the route. Except for these overhead wires, there were no further obstacles to overcome or bridges to cross. On the 6th of March, late in the afternoon, the first large column was maneuvered onto the job site. A guyless lifting gantry was erected to lift the column into vertical position. The column was accurately rolled into lifting position and offloaded on support under reach of the gantry lift system. The next day the second and even bigger column was transported to site and offloaded. After delivery of the third column from the barge, the Cometto trailers were mobilized to Commandment Supply Base so that the two remaining columns could be loaded and were prepared for their road transport to site. Police escorts and Chapadou transport crew were ready to move out and deliver these units to site as well. It took us a full day to maneuver these long columns out of the port area and to transport them over the 27 miles to site. An overhead footbridge with a maximum clearance of 17.5 feet was the major obstacle on this route and limited the overall transportation height. The surveys carried out earlier proved to be correct. This obstruction could be passed without a problem. The first shipload was hardly completed when the second ship arrived at the Commandment Supply Base. At sunrise, at high water, the empty barge was towed from the Paca jetty to Commandment Supply Base to accept the cargo from the second heavy lift vessel. This time it was a Jumbo Callisto, a specialized ro-ro vessel loaded with 4 heavy lifts and a large volume of general cargo. 2 smaller items of 46 tons each were discharged first and placed on supports on the quayside for later transport to the job site by road. The 2 heaviest columns, one of 160 tons and a reactor of 350 tons, had to be rolled off onto the barge from the ship via a heavy load stern ramp. Both 10-axle-line trailers were pulled underneath the transport saddles and hydraulically lifted to load the column from its deck supports. Slowly the 160-ton tower was pulled onto the barge by means of the ship's winches. Trim and heel of barge and ship were accurately controlled by ballasting. When the first column was safely landed on steel deck supports of the barge, the second, twice as heavy column was loaded on both 10-axle-line platform trailer dollies. This operation had to be carried out under extreme rainfall conditions. With 1 column of 160 tons, which was rolled on the starboard side of the barge, and a second column of 350 tons on the port side, regular checks were made with regard to the heel and trim of the barge during the entire operation. It took 2 days for both heavy columns to be safely rolled over to the barge and landed onto deck supports with subsequent lashing and securing for towage to the Paca River. Local fishing boats gave assistance in maneuvering the loaded barge into the Paca River. Just outside the Paca River mouth, the 500 horsepower shallow draft tug took over from the 1200 horsepower tug from Commandment Supply Base. The barge was positioned safely in front of the jetty and was prepared for the roll-off operation the next day. It started raining again, but the two Scania heavy-duty tractors proved to be sufficient to pull the 350 tons column against the 5% slope of the access road. This time the four 5-axle line Cometto platform trailers were configured into two 10-axle line dollies to meet the weight of the heaviest reactors of 350 tons, which is equivalent to 385 US tons. Loaded on a total of 20 axle lines, the gross vehicle weight of 430 metric tons was evenly distributed over all 160 tires, resulting in a tire load of only 2.7 tons. This is not more than a tire load of an average dump truck. Early April, Jumbo's latest new building, motor vessel Fairlift, arrived in Kemaman with a total of 19 heavy lifts on board. Part of the heavies were transported directly from Kemaman to site by road, while the three heaviest pieces were loaded on the barge for towage to Paca. Over the past 3 years, Jumbo took delivery of 3 new buildings like the Fairlift. These heavy lift ships are all equipped with the latest technology mast cranes and are ideal for shipment of project cargo, which consists of a mixture of heavy lifts and general cargo. These 3 columns were identical to the ones delivered by the Fairmast end February. Barge loading, lashing and securing have by now become routine operations. Jumbo has a full range of specialized ocean vessels to meet a wide variety of requirements, coupled with unmatched expertise and access to equipment resources on a worldwide basis and close working relations with transport contractors on all continents. The engineering department has in-depth knowledge of all available transport and erection equipment and is in a position to match the capabilities of the equipment with the job requirements in an optimum fashion. Again, another barge load leaves Kemaman supply base on its way to Paca. The mast cranes are equipped with a 25 tons auxiliary block and can unload general cargo at the same speed as a conventional deck crane. During the 30-week contract period, Jumbo Shipping, in cooperation with Container National and Chapadou, successfully transported a total of 35 heavy lifts in 9 barge trips and 62 heavy lifts by road. A total of 36,000 freight tons of heavy lifts, in combination with 15,000 freight tons of general cargo in 8 shipments. 60,000 man-hours were recorded, with no time lost due to accidents. In the successful performance of the contract, a total of 10 nationalities were involved. Jumbo used 5 different heavy lift ships. Over 60 detailed stowage plans, transport drawings and planning schedules were prepared. A towage certificate was issued for each barge strip. We at Jumbo call it reliable strength.